right, we're all set.
Yeah.
Well, Peggy, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Jacob, for having me. I'm so happy to
Yeah.
discuss with you and share everything I know on the topic of psychedelics.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun learning journey. So where are you from in Canada right now?
I'm from France originally, but I'm based in Toronto, in Canada.
Toronto. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, so I'm really excited just to learn more about you and the realm of psychedelics. I'm always trying to learn. I've had a lot of people on this topic, and I'm sure you'll give me something that's a little different, as they all do, when it comes to just knowledge and awareness about the world of psychedelics. And I'm just really interested, like, what initially got you interested in psychedelics? Was there a particular event or a moment in your life?
Yeah, so I've been for the last, I would say, 10, 12 years on the personal transformation, personal healing bandwagon. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to have a lot of anxiety, which I didn't know actually, a lot
Okay.
of negative thoughts, depressive states, all these things that, oddly enough, have always been with me. So I thought it was normal. I never thought that
Mm-hmm.
it was any problem. And it doesn't seem that around me people were doing much better either. So I was just like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of healing modalities, nothing related to prescribed drugs. I have been prescribed drugs, but I never took them. I've never really been interested by that. But I did a lot in terms of, hypnosis, meditation. I mean, anything that was
Yeah.
alternative, I tried. Um, and I saw some success. I saw some progress in the way I was looking at things and changing my approach to life and all that
Mm-hmm.
great stuff. But it was extremely slow, very, very, very
Yeah.
slow and very incremental. So I was really tired of that because it required me a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of time, all of
Mm-hmm.
that. And last spring, I was okay, well, maybe I should take prescribed drugs because
Mm-hmm.
it seems to be the only way for me to get out of that funky state of mind. And as I was thinking about that, suddenly I could see tons of articles on psychedelics, microdosing
Mm-hmm.
psychedelics, and all that stuff. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's the route I should take. So I did a
Right.
lot of research, and which is quite easy right now because you have so much, documentaries, books,
Mm-hmm.
articles. I mean, like if you really want to understand, it's very easy to find the resources. So I looked at that and I thought, well, you know what? I have nothing to lose, really.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let's try it. And I need to say that I've never taken recreational drugs before.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a big stretch to go in that
Mm-hmm.
direction. But it's a bit, sometimes you're so desperate and fed up. But I was just
Yeah.
like, F that, I'm doing it,
Right.
So being in Canada, it's a bit different than other countries in the world. Across the country, psilocybin, so magic mushrooms, that has been decriminalized. So it's quite
Mm-hmm.
easy to buy magic mushrooms. Actually, I buy
Mm-hmm.
my mushrooms at my massage therapist.
Okay.
So I knew it would be very easy for me to find high quality products. And so that's what I did. And I did research on what would be the best regimen for me. I started with that regimen and then I played with it, changed the frequency, changed the dosage, changed the
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms, and I'm always recalibrating what I'm doing when it comes to my regimen, because what I need today is not what I needed 6 months ago. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, we're going to go into the benefits in a minute, but that's really what brought me to psychedelics. Just the fact that my mental health was not good enough, and I wanted a shift in my life. Just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be happier.
So where did you actually go to get them? We'll say like the magic mushrooms. Was it more online or is there shops in Canada?
So my massage therapist has, literally shelves with different products. Actually, I have a chocolate, one of
Really?
the chocolate I take, I have it there.
Oh
So
wow, cool.
I take it under chocolate. Some people take it under caps. Some people buy the mushrooms themselves. I'm more a chocolate person, so I take
Yeah.
the chocolate. And so this brand is Room 920. But you can also buy online through Shafa.com for the Canadians. I don't really know the brand in other countries, to be totally
Okay.
honest. And so I try different brands, I try different products because,
Mm-hmm.
if you always believe that the first thing you tried, if it works well, is the thing to stay with. But maybe there
Yeah.
is something better. I'm always looking for
Yeah.
better. So for us, it's extremely easy, honestly. And in British Columbia, you literally have shops, so you can. It's like Amsterdam. You can go and just buy the mushrooms.
Okay. And you don't need like a prescription or a special card or anything.
No. It's well, I think you need to be above 21.
Okay.
But I think and I'm sure there is a maximum quantity, similar to
Mm-hmm.
cannabis, maximum quantity you can acquire. But no, it's very, very friendly.
Yeah. And again, what do you suggest to if a person's going to try this for the first time? What particular dose they should try and how long they should try for?
Yeah. So, and again, we need to really be careful with psychedelics because I take psilocybin, which is again magic mushrooms in a
Mm-hmm.
slang word. If you're taking psychedelics like MDMA or LSD, not the same dosage. So,
Right.
really, I just want to make sure people understand that. So, well, I'm just going to show you because I thought it would be easier for
Mm-hmm.
people to understand because milligrams doesn't really talk to us. So a box like that is 3 grams. So
3. Okay.
3 grams, and it's going to be 9 square. So if I show you, it's nine
Oh
square. I
wow.
started my chocolate, so you can see I already have a little bit, but it's 9 square. Okay. So
Okay.
when I started, I actually started with half a square. So that would
Okay.
be the equivalent of 0.15. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and then I tried, and I was taking that every 3 days after I started taking that every other day. So again, I would recommend to people to start with a small dose, so
Mm-hmm.
they can see. Don't try too small that you don't even feel. Otherwise,
Right.
there's no value. You're not going to be able to know what it's supposed to bring you, and to try different strains. So the one I have, and my favorite, I tried many different mushroom, is called the golden teacher. It's really
Okay.
a mild beginner type mushroom,
Yeah.
which is I just find it very pleasant. Some of our mushrooms don't have as much benefit to me, so that I stick with it because I tried over, and that's really the ones that work for me. So again, and I'm happy to send. I wrote a couple of posts on my
Okay. Yeah.
regimen, so I can send you the link. You can put them on, on the comment section, so people can have more details. But my recommendation is always the same. My body is not your body,
Yeah.
and so I can tell you what to take as a base to start.
Yep.
But after, you need to adjust to your own body, but also you today is not the same you 3 months ago or in
Yeah.
3 months. So you also need to adjust to that. So that's, I think it's super important. Very often I see that with prescribed drugs. You have like, okay, take that every day. I have girlfriends
Mm-hmm.
taking anxiety medication for 20 years. I'm like,
Oh.
that's why I never wanted to take prescribed drugs, because these are not solving the problem. And I think we should discuss that. Prescribed drugs, if you have anxiety, depression, is just going to treat the symptoms.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be as all over the place kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Mushrooms, psychedelics rewire your brain. So it treats the
Yes.
cause of the problem. And for me, that's why it was so important. And I was doing all these alternative methods
Yep.
because I was not trying to just solve the symptoms. I really wanted to get better. So now, so I'm going to show, so if I show you like the size, you see, so
Yeah.
let's see, at some point I was taking one full square every
Yep.
3 days. Now, so that little piece that you can see, I take half of that every other day.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea of how much I decreased my dosage because I don't need it as much anymore.
Now, does that have a lot to do with like the neuroplasticity of the brain,
Exactly.
and it really helps in that? Okay.
Exactly. And maybe we should explain that for people who
Yeah.
are listening.
Please.
Neuroplasticity is about your brain's ability to rewire. So,
Yes.
and and that's something that changed really the way we should look at, which is really about how can you leverage that neuroplasticity and that rewiring versus just solving in short term. And keep in mind that when you take prescribed drugs, like I'm sure everyone has been reading side effects on
Yeah.
whatever drug they're taking. So, okay, maybe that helps your anxiety, but it's going to create, I don't know, a heart attack, a stomach ulcer, you're going to
Blood
lose your
pressure. Yeah.
so if you take for 20 years something, there's going to be an impact somehow.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
so that's also something to keep in mind. I think it's great if you have, let's say you have a loss in your family, you
Hmm.
lose your job, you have a big problem, like a specific problem. For me, it was more a mindset, but sometimes you have a specific problem, then for sure, take all the help you can get, and prescribed drug really is going to help you. But if it's just something that is more permanent, that is not triggered by a big event, then you need to, at least for me, my perspective, I don't want to work on the symptom. I want to work on the cause.
Yes. Yeah, but it's like a headache, right? And you're constantly taking like Tylenol for that headache. Well, that's just minimizing the symptoms, not the actual root issue.
Exactly. Do you have a back problem that's giving you migraine? Are
Yeah.
you drinking too much alcohol, which is giving you migraine? Are you, and
Right.
that's a very good example because many maybe you don't sleep enough. Many reasons can give you migraines or headache. And so what you're gonna eat 3, 4, 5 Tylenols a day, but continue
Exactly.
unsolving, maybe your back is, askew,
Yep.
and that's putting pressure on your spine, So that's a great example, actually, Jacob. Yeah.
Hmm. Now, when you first tried psilocybin, were you nervous when you started? Did you have a particular fear of like, oh God, like what might happen to me? Or was it, I gotta do this and let's do it now?
Yes. So because I did so much research, I was not
Mhm.
that worried. Let's put it that way. I wasn't, taking in the basement of someone,
Yep, true.
a big, a
Yep.
big dose of drugs, which is not something I would do. So I was not nervous. I was more excited
Oh, good.
because I, having read all of this research, I was really hopeful that it could
Hmm.
help me. And that's something I really want to mention to the people who are viewing that videos. One thing that I believe is very important with psychedelics and probably anything in our life is the intention. So every time I take my little chocolate, I have an intention of, okay, what do I
Hmm.
want to create? What change do I want to see? Why am I doing it at the end of the day? And I think once you're very clear for why you're doing something, it removes a lot of nervousness because
Hmm.
it's you weigh the pros and the cons.
Hmm.
I would have probably not tried microdosing years ago because there was less research and knowledge on
Hmm.
it, and I had not knocked on so many doors. So I
Yep.
thought, okay, I have other options. I have other options. Here I've done so many options, but I was just like, okay, well,
Hmm.
it's probably time for me to do that, you know.
Yep.
And what is good for me with psilocybin is, so all the other modalities that I was doing, hypnosis, meditation,
Hmm.
tapping, all this great stuff, is actually amplified. So I
Right.
still do them, and it has an augmented effect.
Yep.
So that is technically, I'm sure many people just do microdosing psychedelics, and that's that. I
Right.
continue, and for me, it's probably why now I just need such a small dose,
It's funny when I talk to other like health practitioners too, they say similar things to the point of, yeah, let's say you do ketamine or psilocybin or whatnot. That's even though it can help a lot, it's not the end all be all. You still need to do other aspects of your life well, like self care, eat, sleep, meditation, tapping, however you want to like call it, to maintain a good like mental health.
Yeah, and it's always the same thing. Why are you using microdosing?
Yep.
Some people use it mainly for performance and focus. And
Mm.
in that context, that's very different. Maybe you're just happy to be able to do your work faster,
Yeah.
better, and you don't really care about mental health
Hmm.
benefits because that's not your intent. You know, um, if I look at the benefits, I would really put them in three buckets: the
Okay.
performance and focus, which
Okay.
is why you could hear all the Silicon Valley dudes and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and because that's really what they were interested in. And then you look at two other buckets that are probably a bit closer, which is mental health.
Yeah.
So gonna help with your anxiety, depression, PTSD, all that great stuff. And the third one is more spirituality awareness.
Yeah.
So I really came from the right, but I was very happy. I am still very happy to have a performance and focus benefits
Good.
because you still get them even if you microdose for mental health or
Yeah.
spirituality. You still
Yep.
get the performance benefits. But
Definitely.
to your point, if you're coming to the table for mental health or spirituality, you still need your practice.
Hmm.
You know, but I'm saying that I think a lot of the clinical trials I'm seeing that are happening with the veterans, um, people, the people who are testing, the veterans who are testing the psilocybin or psychedelics
Yep.
treatment to help with anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions as well. I don't think they are doing any type of meditation, tapping, or stuff like that. I think it's really about just the drug, if I can
Yeah.
say that. Um, Personally, I always want more results faster. So,
Yep. Me too.
uh,
Me too.
so I'm like, okay, of course, it's easier to say, okay, I'm going to pop a cap or a chocolate in the morning versus saying, I will still do meditation, I will still
Right.
do realization or whatever. But for me, it's good hygiene, but to each its own. Some people might not want
Hmm.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because as human beings, we always want the quick fix.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe you need that quick fix, and then it's going to bring you somewhere else. Maybe
Yeah.
after that quick fix, you will realize, oh, I want more of that. I want more of that.
Yep.
And maybe you just want the quick fix, and that's good enough for you. Like it's again to each its own.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good points. So, would you like to tell us a little bit more about your experience for the first time? Like when you took it, how long did it take to get into effect, and what were the effects life when
Yeah.
you were in that state of mind?
Yeah. So microdosing, maybe I should give a bit of context. Microdosing is really about getting the benefits of the drugs, as we say, the neuroplasticity, the rewiring,
Yep.
without the hallucinogenic effects. So someone who's doing microdosing right is not supposed to feel high. You're not feeling high, But for me, because I had never taken any drugs before, yeah, the first two,
Mhm.
three times I felt a bit high because
Yeah.
it was, I was just like, oh, what's happening here? And
Yep.
so I would say it was almost fun because these were
Yep.
feelings I never experienced, and maybe it's the same than someone trying. I don't know if you jump from a plane for the first time, or if you dive or whatever,
Yep.
you might have an eye from something you've never done.
Mhm.
It was very fun because I was just like feeling so happy. I was like,
Yep.
oh, and it was just good because I take very small dose. It was
Mhm.
not uh, tripping into space or seeing weird things or whatever. You have no hallucinogenic
Okay.
act. So the recommendation for people who want to start microdosing, and it's the right time to discuss that with the holidays coming, is to do it when you're not working, like when you have a bit of time for yourself and you can
Mhm.
experience. You're not nervous about, okay, what's going to happen to me and da da da. What I find very often when I speak with people with microdosing is that they don't really understand what it means. If you think microdosing is, well, I'm going to take a small dose on Monday, and then 3 weeks after, maybe I'll take another one. You
Right.
still need, you still need a
Yep.
bit of frequency
Yep.
every day, every other day, every 3 days. But you cannot just. So I had girlfriends like, yeah, I
Mhm.
tried microdosing, and what they mean is that, okay, I took a very small dose on Sunday, and it didn't really change anything. No, that doesn't work
Yeah,
that
keep doing
way.
it. Yep.
You still need to have frequency over a longer period of time. Doesn't mean 6 months, can be just a few
Yeah.
weeks. If you just take one very small dose,
Right.
every month, it's not gonna do anything for you. So I would say again, as I started, for me, I didn't have this eye, just a bit giddy
Yep.
of the first week maybe, and then it's more of the benefit for me was more about looking at life in a positive way, which might be
Mhm.
very weird for people who don't understand what it means to look at life in a negative way. But
Mhm.
when you get up and you're already thinking, oh my God, what will the dread, you're dreading
Yep.
everything,
Exactly.
and it's always bad. You can only see the glass half empty,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult to explain, I assume, for someone who has a different outlook. But for me, just to be able to go from very negative even to neutral
Right.
was life changing. And
Mhm.
getting up in the morning and being happy and thinking, oh, it might be a good day. I mean,
Exactly.
I,
Optimism.
yes, yes, and not
Yep.
just when you're vacationing. And even vacationing, I was not really thinking that way, but
Mhm.
even a normal day could be a good day. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So for me, that was very, very valuable. It is still extremely valuable. Yeah.
Did your family, loved ones see a difference from you initially when you took it?
I would say so. My family is in France, so people don't really see me, kind of. But I have a girlfriend recently. She told me, she's like, since you started microdosing, you're
Mhm.
way less uptight. So I took that as a compliment.
Good.
I guess that was a way of saying that I was more relaxed and more
Yep.
going with the flow versus being extremely controlling. And, I had a lot of phobia. I had a lot of, neurosis. So, I would look at my watch like 100 times a day. And when I say
Yep.
100 times, I'm probably underestimating it. And when I say my watch, I should say my iPhone, because no one wears a watch.
Yeah.
I was
Yep.
always constantly obsessing about time, obsessing about, what people are going to say to me. They're going to
Yep.
attack me, they're going to push back, they're going to, so it was a very fearful way of looking at life. And
Okay.
such a small box, so one thing that was good about me is that I've never been the type of person who said, I'm not doing it because I'm afraid. So I have girlfriends who are telling me, well, I'm not driving highways because I'm afraid. Me, I would do it. I would be terribly anxious before, well, not highways, but things that were very a stretch for me. I would still do them, but it would create a lot of turmoil, a lot of turmoil. But again, I always thought that you don't treat the symptoms, you treat the cause. You don't do something because you're afraid, so I was already probably someone who had a frame of mind for growth, even if I had a very negative outlook on life. So like both were not necessarily working well together.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. From my past experience when I'm interviewing people too, they really strongly express the out of body experiences they go through when you're tripping or going through the experience microdosing. It's almost kind of like you're floating above your body. If that makes sense.
Well, if you take a large dose, not a small dose. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm not sure how much they took, to be honest with you.
yeah, yeah. Because if you take a small dose, there is no hallucinogenic effect.
Okay.
Like the goal is not to have that. Otherwise, well, it's difficult to go to work and
Right.
if you're feeling. But
But like
I
you said, don't you need me time? Like when you take it, you should have a good amount of time for yourself.
Oh, I mean, when you start microdosing, so
Hmm.
when I started 6 months ago, I made sure that my calendar wasn't full of meetings and things like
Okay.
that because I didn't know what to expect, you
Right.
know? So it's more to create space for people to play with it,
Yeah.
experience, and understand. It's not because you're going to be, like incapable
Yeah.
of operating. That's the whole point with microdosing is that you operate. I microdosed this morning. Like the whole point
Yep.
is to be sharp. Actually, it's exactly the other way around.
Okay.
But I did so because psilocybin worked so well for me. I was like, okay, well, let's go to a retreat where
Mm.
you take a large dose and you're doing a trip. There you
Okay.
have this hallucinogenic effect and you feel, like you're above your body, as you
Yes.
mentioned. But again, so one dose for a trip is basically the entire box. It's 3 grams.
Okay. Yep.
So that would be like the entire thing of chocolate. So
Gotcha.
uh, as you can imagine, someone who's doing microdosing, the full chocolate like that is probably lasting him or her a month. Here you're,
Yeah.
you're taking right now. So I did it with experienced guides. I did
Yes.
it really again with an intention of letting go of like past trauma, past negativity, this type of thing. So it was not medical because the
Hmm.
guides were not doctors, but it was in an environment that was very not just safe but controlled. These people
Hmm.
receive people like me every week, and they've done
Yes.
that for years. So and again, it was not okay, let's take 3 grams in my basement and see over chips fall like some people
Yeah.
might do, which I will not recommend. That is really a recreational drug experience.
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
not, which I mean, to each its own. Again, that's not what I do. But here, it's really an experience was linked with growth. You know,
Yes.
and it's very difficult for me to dissociate mental health, personal transformation, and spirituality / awareness. For me, all of that kind of start and it's difficult to have weak mental health and go for personal transformation. You keep bouncing back to a wall,
Yeah.
And if you're trying to have strong spiritual practice and your mental health is not there, it's not helping either. So, everything is kind of feeding on each other, with
Hmm.
mental health as the foundation, the way I look at it. So this retreat was two big trips. The first trip, where my intention was really to release the past, the negativity, and you have 1 day break, and then the second day for me was to augment the positive, because it's a bit like, okay, you want to clean the house
Hmm.
and then you want to design the house so it's pretty, so
Yep.
for me it was, okay, let's remove the crap and then let make things nicer. But then these are totally hallucinogenic experience. I mean, you take big
Yep.
dose. Yes, you're flying way above your body, let's put it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, because from what I heard too, when people have bad experiences or bad trips, and that can look different from everyone, they say yes, it is a scary experience, but again, when they come down, they always benefit from it in some way or form.
And it depends what you call a bad trip. So my first trip kind of was
Hmm.
extremely emotional. So it was, I cried a lot and it was extremely physically exhausting. I mean, it was 7 hours. So it's tiring and mentally, emotionally exhausting. So I don't know, is it a bad trip? I don't know, because it's like eating a bad oyster and trying to release it. It's not going to be a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
Here I was trying to release trauma. It's obviously not a pleasant experience either.
Right.
So it needs to go through your system. Um, but if people are saying bad trip because, again, they're taking a large dose and then going to a rave or are watching horror movies, or
Hmm.
you're not really putting the right environment for you to have a successful experience. Like, you need
Hmm.
to have people around you that are very qualified to make sure you reach your goal,
Yep.
not just babysitter, someone who's guiding you. So people who
Hmm.
have bad trip might be people as well who, first, what is a bad trip, but second, what did you do? Again, if you took a big dose and you're just roaming around the street, I don't think you're gonna
Yeah.
have a good time, like
I wonder too if it's, yeah, taking too much, and also when you're going through the past trauma and that out of body experience is just maybe just all that coming into one. I heard people like they would like maybe like get anxious, they'd start like screaming a little bit, and just the sense of fear in their faces going through
yeah,
that past traumatic experience in the moment. But
yeah,
also, I've heard too, you're so detached from that traumatic experience where you're not necessarily feeling that traumatic experience as it is happening to you, like most classic PTSD symptoms. But again, you're like, let's say, seeing that past event occur again while you're, let's say, in that out of body experience. You're not really, again, experiencing that moment and trauma. You're looking at it from a different lens.
yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point as well, to change the perspective and be able to release it. So
Hmm.
it's and that's something that I believe is very important for the people who are listening and looking at us today or later, is don't take large dose of
Hmm.
psychedelics on your own. I mean, like, that's a very bad idea, like, but I mean,
Yep.
so we're not talking about that at all right now. Here we're talking taking extremely small dose every other day or every 3 days, depending on
Hmm.
what for you, to help with your mental health, to help with your performance and focus. If, like me, you believe that it
Hmm.
works well and you want more, work with specialists, people who are extremely qualified if you want to take larger dosage, but don't do that with your best friend looking at
Right.
you in your basement. That's a very bad idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your book that you have?
Oh yes, thank you. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I well, actually, what's very interesting talking about performance and focus is that I wrote the book in 10 days. So, and when I say I wrote the book in 10 days, I wrote the first draft in 10 days, and then I edited it and da 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 da. But I in 10 days I had something to share with. So that's also a testament to the value of microdosing when it comes to performance and focus. So that's something that yes, I should have mentioned that when I mentioned the benefit. So the book I wrote is actually on my own experience with microdosing.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah. So what happened is that I started microdosing here in Toronto. And then I was going to Europe. I was speaking at a big finance conference because my background is in finance, even if I'm not
Okay.
operating in finance anymore. So I was speaking in a large conference in Amsterdam, from all places. And
Mhm.
because I'm from France, I used that to go on vacation. So I spent 2 weeks in Europe. So it's a bit the recount, but in an humoristic way of what
Mhm.
happened to me during the 2 weeks, but also what before was very triggering for me. So going back to France is
Mhm.
extremely triggering for me. So every time I was going back, I was like, okay, this time I'm gonna be fine. And every time
Yeah.
it was after 2 days, it total
Yeah.
meltdown. Um, but
Mhm.
then that was actually a very different experience because I could see why I was triggered and not being triggered anymore. So I could understand a lot of things from the past.
Yep.
So it's really explaining all from Amsterdam to Paris to my hometown, all things and the microdosing evolved. So, but again, it's a fun, there's a lot of fun adventures that happened on that trip as well. So I made it
Mhm.
fun. But the goal is
Yep.
also for people to to see themselves, like to
Yes.
relate. I think we can all relate, especially it's the holiday season. People going back usually to their family is extremely stressful.
Yep.
Um, and for me, well, that was pretty much that. Not just my family, but the people I grew up with. Like I'm French.
Mhm.
I left. I was 26, so seeing my countrymen is usually very triggering. Especially French people are not necessarily the kindest people to be around. So
Right.
it was always extremely challenging. But now
Mhm.
last trip was actually very fun. So yeah, the book is called
Good.
Paris Mushrooms and Me, and it's that story over 4 weeks actually. Yeah,
Oh, wow, that's great. That's great.
yeah.
And where could we find that book?
Well, actually, I'm looking for a publisher right now. So I'm
Oh,
speaking with different. You always have a choice. Do you self-publish? Do you publish with a house? And I would rather publish with a house.
yep.
So I'm looking for the right publisher who enjoy this type of topics.
Good. Yeah, and I have no doubt you'll find one.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's like everything. You need to find your person.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
So, what's your thoughts on maps and what they're doing in research right now?
Well, listen, what I really like with the space is that there is less stigma attached to it. And obviously,
Yeah,
what maps have been doing has been greatly helping with the
absolutely.
education and making sure we understand that we're not talking about heroin when we're talking about psychedelics. Everything had been bundled together 50 years ago for many political reasons, but
Hmm.
that's not the reality. So we've done an amazing job in helping the public understand that better, even if I don't think we're there yet, but there is still a lot of things. Um, what's happening a lot in the space, and I know that might concern the people who are more purist, is the fact that
Hmm.
a lot of capital is going towards companies that are developing potential drugs using psychedelics for anxiety, depression, and all this stuff. And I think the worry can be funded, where there is a lot of money. You might end up with people who the benefit of a patient might not be first, and first might be profit,
Yeah.
which is always what's happening when you have a lot of margins that can be generated.
Hmm.
you know. So what you see is a lot of private and public companies that are really working to develop these new treatments, which I mean is
Hmm.
absolutely great. The worry that is coming from organization maybe a bit more non-capitalistic or non-money
Yeah.
driven is that you're diluting the message, you're diluting the greater good, and you're bringing a bit more mercenary behaviors to the market with people who are really in it to make a lot of money.
Hmm.
So again, I think it's absolutely fabulous that we have organizations like MAPS. I think it's absolutely wonderful that we have new companies that are interested in that. I think, as always, we need to, and when I say we as a society, we
Hmm.
need to be conscious about making sure that these new treatments, when they're approved through the trials and all of that, that they're affordable, and that
Yeah.
they are, you know, and that they are distributed, to the audience that needs it. And I think that's something
Yeah.
that some people are getting worried about, rightfully so.
Well, yeah, and plus too, it's getting the insurance companies on board with the whole process and the reimbursement rates too.
It's and you have big pharma that is obviously looking into that, as you can imagine, because it would
Hmm.
cannibalize a lot of their revenue and margin. So you have a bit of damn if you do, damn if you don't, from a big pharma
Yeah.
perspective, where they all want to jump in the gravy train because there is a lot of money, but at the same time they're trying to lobby and block because it puts their own current medications
Yep.
at risk. Again, think about my girlfriend who's been taking anti-anxiety, the same
Yeah.
anti-anxiety drug for 20 years. I mean, that's a good client. You don't want her,
Yes.
if she rewires her brain and don't need that anymore. It's a client you love.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's not just that you're not just cannibalizing your current medication, but it's also because you're treating the cause instead of the symptoms.
Right.
You're becoming a non-patient at some point.
It's so funny because that's what I talked about in a previous episode of mine where there's a little conspiracy theory on it, but it's just like, yeah, what do the drug companies want? Will they want another product coming in that's cheaper and more beneficial? Well, no, it's going to take away from their revenue.
It's
You
I
know,
mean, it's not about conspiracy theory. It's just about math.
yeah,
It's a corporation has investors, and the investors want the revenue to grow at a certain growth rate every quarter. They want the
hmm,
margin the same. If now you're saying you're displacing your best sellers with cheaper drugs that also people, instead of taking their entire life, might take only a few years.
right,
Wow, that's not very attractive. So it's good for society, but it's not good for that corporation.
exactly,
So,
110% agree.
so that's a
Yeah,
bit the challenge. So that's why we need organization groups like MAPS, like who have a different mindset and
hmm,
the check and balance. Um, but maybe I'm cynical. Stuff to fight big money.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, didn't they just get done with a recent trial, like the last phase of something? I can't remember what it was.
Well, you
But,
so you have different companies in the UK, in North
hmm,
America, that are doing different trials using different, some use MDMA, LSD, some use psilocybin, and
hmm,
depending on the use of the drug, some are using it for depression, some for anxiety. So they're all also on different
yeah,
different spectrum. And also keep in mind that you're going to have assisted, therapy. You can already have, psychedelic assisted therapy. So
Yeah.
in some part of the world, not everywhere, not every therapist does it, and not every country
Well,
or
it's so
state.
expensive. The certifications for a therapist to like get are thousands of dollars just to get put through the training.
Well, it's very expensive for everyone because it's
Right.
expensive for the psychotherapist, but it's extremely expensive for the patient as well.
Yeah.
Very, very expensive. So,
Hmm.
unfortunately, right now, I guess it's always same thing. When things are very confidential, they're always very expensive. As they get into more hands, usually the price goes down.
Hmm.
But at this point, I looked into that and I was just like, you know what, I would rather do my own microdosing and my own
Hmm.
practice. I'm not paying. I think it was like $750 per hour. I'm like, are you on drugs?
Oh,
Yeah, it was very, very
man,
expensive. But I
it
guess if
is.
your training is that expensive, I guess they're trying to recoup the cost. I
Hmm.
assume the rationale, but from
Yeah.
an individual perspective, I don't have that. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, Peggy, this was such an honor having you on the show. It was so much fun. Um, if there's anything else you want to say, you can say it. But normally, I just want to ask my guests too, what are your future goals? What do you hope to accomplish in the next 5 years, let's say, regarding like psychedelics and whatnot?
mhm. Well, it's so. I dropped a bit the idea of goals. I use more
Hmm.
intention. I just find goals is very rigid,
Hmm.
and we all know that the goals we have very often they're actually goals we picked because we've been told by society or parents,
Yeah.
whoever. So now I'm getting very, I would say, suspicious with goals because I'm like, is it
Hmm.
something I want for myself or is it something I want for others? And I was brainwashed into
Yeah.
thinking it's good. So it's a long. I'm sorry, it's a long answer. So for me, it's
No, it's
more
okay.
intention. And my intention for myself, instead of looking at goals and what do I want, I'm more looking about feeling and how do I want to feel, what do I want to experience, and that's getting more important for me because in the past I reached many goals,
Yeah.
they didn't make me happy whatsoever. Maybe they just made me more stressed and anxious, so now
Yeah.
I'm more okay, how can I feel better? How can I feel great? And that's really my goal. When it comes to psychedelics, I started doing some public speaking on that
Nice.
topic because I really, really want to spread the word because it has been so helpful for me, and I'm sure many, many people. I actually know many people are interested because every time I speak or I write an article,
Hmm.
people usually are not comfortable doing it on an online
Yeah.
platform, but they send me an email after, they call me, they text me, because
Yep.
they want to understand better. So I just want to be, I would say, part of that movement and help spread the word so people can benefit from it. I mean, that's a washy goal, but there is no metrics associated with that.
Yeah.
It's really what I wish to be, a
Hmm.
participant in the movement. Yeah.
And you're doing a wonderful job. I just have to be honest. You're doing great.
Thank you. You're very
Of
kind,
course.
Jacob. And back to you.
So if any of my listeners want to get a hold of you, is there a particular email or website they could use to message you? Just,
Yes, well, the website is my name, so
yeah.
peggyvandeplassche.com. So, well, my name is not that easy, but that's my name. They can also reach me through LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. I'm on most
Nice.
of the platforms. So yes, questions, comments, don't hesitate. I answer them all. Sometimes I'm a bit slow, but I answer them all.
Mhm. Well, great. And again, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
No, thank you, Jacob, and thank you for doing what you're doing. That's very helpful for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.